Welcome to Wells Street Market 1919, where our story begins. It's a story about how a single market stall, started by one young man, changed the face of British shopping. That young man was Jack Cohen. He grew up in the East End of London, the youngest of 5 kids born to working-class parents. He served in the Royal Flying Corps in the war, and he survived when his ship hit a mine. When he got back, he didn't fancy joining his dad in the family tailoring business. Instead, Jack took his £30 D-mob money, bought some surplus army food, and got himself a pitch.
And by the end of that morning's work, I had taken £4, of which £1 was mine. I owned £1.
The first day of 100 years of value. Jack was a grafter, a real family man. And he wasn't just thinking about his own family, but about all the families who couldn't afford the food in the shops. He gave customers what they needed, all kinds of things at keen prices. Pickles, posh jam, Russian biscuits, and cornflakes. They were the new big thing back then. He was a wholesaler too, supplying other barrows. It put Jack on the map, all over London. It was tea, Britain's favourite drink, that gave Jack his big break. He did a deal with a trader called T.E. Stockwell and repackaged it into affordable little bags to sell to his customers. They needed a name, so they took the T.E.S. from T.E. Stockwell and the C.O. from Cohen to make Tesco. £400 was sold on the first day, bringing value and tea to the people. Jack teamed up with hundreds of suppliers to get customers decent food at decent prices. The first Tesco shop opened in Burnt Oak in 1929, and 100 more in 10 years. But then, Britain went to war. While our troops were away, Jack was fighting on the home front for fair food rationing, a simple points system, everyone treated equally, rich or poor. The government invited him onto the Food Trade Emergency Committee. Rationing came in the following year.
In 1946, I went to America, and I saw these supermarkets all over the country and watched the way they were traded, and I thought our type of business was just the very thing for this.
He brought back the idea of self-service. It took a while to catch on, but once it did, Britain never looked back. It meant even better prices for hard-pressed shoppers.
It's a Save-A-Lot Tesco. Tesco to the rescue to keep prices down. Tesco slashes large pledge to 3 and 6. Tesco cuts bacon foil to 2 shillings.
So Save-A-Lot Tesco did Green Shield stamps too.
New ideas like Green Shield stamps were a huge hit. Something for nothing, Jack called them. And they were a big part of Tesco's fight against price fixing in the 60s, when Jack campaigned to end resale price maintenance. Now Tesco was everywhere. Superstores opened out of town with a handy bus service. Jack was knighted for his part in changing the face of British shopping. At 79, Sir Jack handed over the reins to new management with new ideas.
I had a team of people, really good characters, and we ran it in a very different way. We said to everybody, we're going to give you something more than the old Tesco, so come and shop with us on Wednesday. And it was planned all the way along the line that we'd actually open on Thursday. So all the manufacturers and all the retailers were looking and saying, what on earth is Tesco doing? Expecting us to open on the Wednesday, and they all came out on television and on every paper with all their prices on the Wednesday, and we were closed. So we looked at all their television, we looked at all their press advertising, and we beat them all hands down.
Where can you get hundreds of price cuts that help keep the cost of living in check? Check out at Tesco. Heinz baked beans, 12.5p. Ski yogurt, 7.5p.
And out we went on the Thursday, and we just couldn't cope. I mean, it was just an amazing, amazing success. And then Jack got very, very ill. And we opened a store in Pitsea, And it was an absolutely wonderful store. It was the biggest store that we'd ever done, and it was trading tremendously well. Jack arrives in a Rolls-Royce, and his wheelchair was in the back. And we got him out of the wheelchair, and we pushed him around Pitsy. And I put my arm around him, and tears were going down his cheeks. And I said, "Are you all right, Governor?" And he said, "I never thought I'd see anything like this." And we put him in the car. He went back to Harley Street Clinic, and he died that night.
The ambition for Tesco has to be a simple one, which is we satisfy customers, that they choose Tesco above other places to go to do their household shopping. They trust Tesco to look after their needs.
David, I have an assignment for you. I want you to go out and buy some chicken. We've heard about a unique breed that lives free range near Bordeaux. Oh, and David, don't come back without them.
I remember as a young man with my company Ford Escort driving around to the Thames estuary to see a tanker unloading fuel that I'd bought, and I was absolutely scared witless, thinking, you know, oh my God, what if something goes wrong? We would open a petrol station and sell fuel at least 5p a litre cheaper than the oil majors at the time. And that meant that, you know, customers rewarded us by coming to us, not just to shop for their fuel, but also visiting the store at the same time.
Tesco was listening to customers, finding all kinds of ways to make shopping just that little bit easier and more affordable.
We brought this new idea in of speaking to hundreds of thousands of our customers and letting them tell us what was wrong, what we should do. Sounds obvious now.
Would you like to change your baby, madam?
No, we're quite happy with this one, thank you.
Mother?
Tesco. Every little helps.
At Tesco, we think the world of our customers.
Before Clubcard, we literally didn't know who was shopping in our stores. You might be spending the biggest part of your weekly income in a Tesco store, and we didn't even know it. And we certainly didn't know if you left. We wouldn't know why you left. So we wanted just to recognise you as a customer and say thank you.
Tesco was changing the way people were shopping, but one of the biggest changes was still to come.
Tesco grocery home shopping is easily the biggest in the UK. We've got massive reach everywhere. But of course, it didn't start out that way. So our very first experience was with a lady called Jane Snowball, who was an elderly customer of ours up in Gateshead. She placed the very first order for us through her television using teletext. You take a call from the customer for flowers or wine, you would ring the supplier and ask them to fulfil the order. So that was basically the start of grocery home shopping.
Tesco is still Britain's biggest retailer, but for the last 3 years, business has been slowing steadily as people shop elsewhere.
We lost sight of the customer. We lost sight of our core purpose. We lost sight of our every little helps mantra.
Colleagues being their best in store is firstly thinking about how they contribute to the core purpose. Serving Britain's shoppers a little better every day. Put the power of the group and company purpose in the hands of every individual, no matter where you worked. A lot has changed in stores. You know, if I'm in a store thinking about every single customer that I have the pleasure of meeting or bumping into or asking for help, how do I make sure they get fantastic service from me as an individual?
What we wanted to do was get back to Tesco at its best, which is putting the customer at the heart of everything it does and being the champion for customers again. And that meant lowering prices and making sure they were more stable so customers could trust them more. It meant launching new ranges of great value brands, whether that be our farm brands initially, or more latterly, exclusively at Tesco brands.
We've continued to build genuine, long-term supplier partnerships.
So there are many examples of things that we've done to deliver great value for customers.
Jack was an inspiration in many ways, but for me, the biggest thing was his passion for being close to customers and colleagues. He had a real instinct, and I think that's the same. We're doing that today, and we'll continue to do that tomorrow.
I'm absolutely convinced that we can be as successful over the next 100 years as we have been for the last 100 years, as long as we keep focusing on being the champion for customers.
Tesco, celebrating 100 years of great value.